Alright folks, here she is, the Tesla Model 3. Now if you're not new to the channel, you know that the last Tesla I reviewed is actually the old generation of this car. It was my 2023 dual motor in gray. So we are literally driving the exact same car that we previously reviewed on the channel in its newest form. So what did Tesla change with the Model 3? Well, it starts in the front. We have a new front end that is more aerodynamically efficient. This car is better in the aero department than the outgoing model, which changing nothing, just increases the range. But I do have to say, from a styling perspective, I liked the old front end better than this one, but it is growing on me. The more I see it, the more I like it, but I still like the outgoing model a little bit more. Coming around to the side, you see the second change that was made. Sorry, it's a little bit windy. I'm going to put on my hood in an attempt to mask some of the wind here, so hopefully that helps. But around the side, you see the second change made to this car, and that is the suspension. They optimized the suspension. It is a new geometry. This car is supposed to drive a lot smoother, and we have a new real tire package. The side of the car is exactly the same except for new cameras. But when you come around the rear, you see two big changes to the Tesla Model 3. First off is the taillights. Those are all new. Love how these look. These look a ton better. Second off, you see the Tesla logo is replaced with the word Tesla on the rear, much like the Model S and Model 3. But what about the inside? What did they change on the inside? Well, looking at the door cards, you see some ambient lighting has carried its way to the rear, which is new for Tesla Model 3. You see a rear screen there with two USB-C ports, which is new to Model 3. Sitting in the rear, you have a different floor height, which makes this rear more comfortable to be. Now, is it the most comfortable? No, I wish this was still a little bit taller, but you have more thigh support underneath, which you didn't have before. You still have two map pockets, which is nice, and these front seats are all new, which makes our way to the front. Lumbar support, power seats, these are new design. Let's get in. We have an all-new steering wheel. The steering wheel is different mainly because there are no stocks. There's no stock for the blinkers. Those are right here. There's no stock for the lights. That is right here. There's no stock for the autopilot. That is right here. But what is nice is you have a button that pulls up the camera. Love that that is on the wheel. The wheel itself is a good design. It's a good size. What I don't like is on the back, there is some stitching that where I traditionally put my hands, which is right here, I feel it with my pointer finger, and I don't like that at all. Now, this sound system is definitely improved from the outgoing model. We have two subs in this car, and you feel it. This car freaking thumps with some bassy music. And then you also see this red line that wraps all the way around. And if you go here, and you go to lights, and you hit this, you can change that to whatever you want. Purple, orange, red, green, whatever you want, you can change it. We'll keep it in green for now. Auto high beams, which is great. This is a new screen with thinner bezels, but it is overall the same size. In the HVAC department, you have the functionality now to separate your passenger. So if you have no one in the front seat, you can turn that off to save a little bit more energy. And you also have cooled seats, heated or cooled seats. And in order to control that, you have to hit the seat and then you can select heat or cool. I've been using the cool seats for the majority of the drive, and it actually has been really, really nice. All right, we're gonna buckle up and let's get going. Now, I talked about two of the changes. The first one being there's no stock here. So what you do to put it in gear is you hit this button on the screen and you swipe up. Now it's in drive. You want to go in reverse? You swipe down. And it doesn't really make sense because if you've owned a Tesla or if you've owned any pickup truck or any car with a column shifter like a modern Mercedes, you know that to go into reverse, you actually go up. So I wish this was reversed, but hey, that's it. That's what we are. That's what we're doing. Now, the second change that Tesla made was they increased the sound deadening in this car. And the third change that they made was the suspension geometry was changed. So we're not going to comment much on the power. We're not going to comment much on the range, because while Tesla claims that there is improved range to this car, and I trust them, I bet you there is a slight improvement to the range. The biggest thing that I want to understand is, did they improve the ride enough? Did they reduce the sound the amount of sound that you hear coming into this car? Holy cow, someone bought a 2 Series Grand Coupe. That's crazy. Anyway, did they make this car so good that if you own an outgoing Model 3, that you got to run to the Tesla dealer and you got to buy this car? Let's see. Let's just take a listen at speed as to how this car sounds. Now, I hit a couple bumps there, and we instantly noticed two things. Number one, this car is certainly a lot quieter than the outgoing model. If I had to guess, I would say this Tesla Model 3 is about 5 to 6 decibels quieter than the Model 3 it replaces, which is pretty substantial in the sound deadening department for a car that still has pillarless windows for some freaking reason. I don't know why they don't, but anyway, that's a different discussion for another day. And now I've also been hitting some of the potholes and the manhole covers on this drive, and I gotta say, over my time with this car, it certainly is a lot more compliant than the vehicle it replaces. It takes bumps like a 3 Series or a C-Class, which is to say it's pretty well damped. It's a lot better damped than the Model 3 it replaces, and that is either the rear-wheel drive or the dual motor. The powertrain tuning is exactly the same. If you've driven one Model 3, you know exactly what the throttle feels like. The steering is pretty similar to the outgoing model as well. The biggest changes really do seem to be how this car feels over bumps and the sound at speed. So that presents the question. If you were one of those folks in that white or blue Model 3, and you're looking at this car thinking, wow, that's the new Tesla, I need it, right? It's got to be a big improvement over my car. I have to have it, right? Well, I don't think so. While it is a big improvement, while this car has certainly made strides in the positive direction, if you have a previous generation Model 3, keep it. Keep it. There's nothing wrong with it. What you're missing out on is a car that has a slightly better sound system and has less wind noise and takes bumps a little bit better. Not worth the added debt, not worth the added investment, especially when the current Model 3 does not qualify for the federal tax incentive. But if you are looking for a brand new electric vehicle, where does the Model 3 stack up? Well, it's still my favorite. It is still one of the best introductions to an electric vehicle that someone can get into. The Tesla charging network is very easy to use. It's plentiful. It's reliable for the most part. It's super seamless UI UX. It's very easy to understand. Anyone can sort of get in this car and work day one. And that isn't even including if you had home charging at home. It's even easier to operate this car. It's quiet. The Model 3 by and large has been a relatively reliable vehicle. It'll last you well over 100,000 miles provided you maintain the battery as you should. So I would get one of these over an Ioniq 5 or 6, provided there isn't some sort of crazy incentive on those cars. But how does it stack up against other sedans? Well, this car competes pretty handily with cars like the 3 Series, the G70, the TLX, the A4, the C-Class, and that is where it gets a little bit closer. Because while I actually really like the dynamics of how this Model 3 drives, I've always liked Model 3 steering. I think the powertrain tuning is really, really nice. Now with the isolation and suspension improvements, it becomes an even bigger competitor to the cars from Germany, which is huge, and even the cars from Japan and Korea. If I were you, I would go test drive 3 sedans and pick your favorite. Test drive the new Model 3, test drive the new G70, and then test drive the 3 Series. Between those 3 cars, you'll find what works for you. Whether that is a car that has a better interior, whether that is an internal, whatever that is, just pick your preference, pick whichever car you like, and it'll be awesome.